Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. There's power in silence. You don't have to tell the world what you're doing. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Stop broadcasting every move you're planning to make. Just get to work. Start climbing. Start grinding. Start becoming. And when it's time, when you've built it, when you've earned it, success will speak louder than anything you could have ever posted, said, or shared. Self-improvement is a private journey, not a public performance. In today's world, people are obsessed with sharing everything they do, their plans, their struggles, even their dreams. Social media has created this illusion that progress is only real if it's witnessed by others. But the truth is, the most powerful transformations happen when no one's watching. The late nights, the early mornings, the quiet decisions to do better. That's where real change is born. You don't need an audience to grow. In fact, sometimes an audience slows you down, distracts you, or even plants seeds of doubt. When you're constantly trying to prove something to others, you lose sight of what really matters, becoming better than the person you were yesterday. Real improvement is internal. It's not flashy, it's not loud, and it sure isn't always pretty. It's uncomfortable, it's lonely, and it requires you to face parts of yourself that you might not want to look at. You start to realize that the only competition that matters is the one between who you are and who you're trying to become. And that battle doesn't need a stage. When you take your eyes off of the need for validation, you begin to move differently. You no longer feel the urge to broadcast every workout, every decision, every late night grind. You're not doing it for likes or applause. You're doing it because you know what's at stake. You're doing it because the person you want to be is worth the quiet struggle. It becomes a sacred process. You start making changes because they align with your vision, not because they look impressive to others. You begin to appreciate the beauty of subtle progress, the small wins that only you notice, the discipline to say no when it's hard, the courage to show up even when you feel like quitting, the quiet confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. These are the things that build unshakable self-worth. And you don't need to post about them to prove they're real. People often mistake silence for inaction, but they have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. They don't see the internal battles you're winning. They don't see the mental shifts, the healing, the resilience being built brick by brick. They don't see the sacrifices, the discipline, the countless times you chose growth over comfort. And they don't have to. Because when you really grow, when you truly evolve, you walk differently. You carry yourself with a quiet power that needs no introduction. Your presence alone starts to speak volumes. That's the difference between those who talk about it and those who become it. There's something incredibly powerful about being underestimated. When people don't see your moves coming, they can't block you. They can't discourage you. They can't manipulate you into playing small. Moving in silence gives you control over your journey. It gives you space to fail, to learn, to adjust without judgment. It protects your energy. It keeps your focus where it belongs, on the process, not the perception. And it helps you stay grounded. Because when your progress isn't dependent on praise, you become unstoppable. You stop looking for shortcuts and start building a foundation that can't be shaken. You begin to understand that the only person you owe proof to is yourself. And that kind of mindset is dangerous in the best way. It breeds a quiet kind of confidence. One that doesn't need to shout because it already knows what it's capable of. One that keeps building, keeps improving, keeps moving forward without making noise. Discipline in silence leads to results that speak loudly. When you decide to commit to something meaningful, Whether it's a personal goal, a dream, or a lifestyle change, it's discipline that carries you through, not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. It's fleeting. Some days you feel it, some days you don't. But discipline is what keeps you consistent when the excitement fades. And the kind of discipline that truly transforms you doesn't demand attention. It thrives in silence. It's in the quiet choices that you make each day, waking up early when no one is watching, putting in the extra hours when everyone else has called it a day, pushing yourself when it would be easy to quit. Those quiet sacrifices build strength, they build habits, they build character, and eventually they build results that speak louder than any words ever could. People want the outcome, but not the process. They want the reward, but not the silence that comes with preparation. Discipline is not glamorous. It's repetitive. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to delay gratification. It requires you to say no to what's easy so you can say yes to what's necessary. Most people avoid that kind of consistency because there's no instant praise in it. But the truth is, the loudest achievements are built in the quietest season. When you commit to self-discipline, you're building something solid, something real. You don't need to convince anyone of your progress. You just keep showing up. You stay focused. You don't flinch when things get tough because you know that every day you stay disciplined, you get one step closer to the life you want. There's a certain peace that comes from not having to prove anything to anyone. When you work in silence, you're not driven by opinions, expectations, or approval. You're driven by purpose. You're guided by a vision that's bigger than temporary praise. And because of that, you stop needing applause. You start building a life that earns respect. It's not the loud ones who create real impact. It's the ones who master the quiet grind. They're the ones who surprise everyone, not because they talked about what they were doing, but because they let their success show what they've been doing all along. In silence, you gain clarity. You see your weaknesses without distraction. You face your habits honestly. You learn to listen to yourself. That self-awareness feeds your discipline. It helps you improve without needing to compare your journey to anyone else's. You stop chasing perfection and start chasing growth. And the more you grow in private, the more confident you become in public. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you've already impressed yourself. That's the true reward of silent discipline. You stop needing noise to validate your worth, your work, your progress, your mindset. They begin to shine through everything you do without announcements, without declarations, just quiet excellence being developed day by day. Success doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself. In a world where people rush to share every small win, true success often moves in silence. It doesn't need a spotlight or a stage because it carries its own light. When someone has truly accomplished something meaningful, you can feel it in how they carry themselves. You can see it in the life they've built, not in the words they use. Real success has a presence. It shows up in the results, in the discipline, in the calm confidence of someone who knows exactly what they work for. You don't have to tell people you're winning when your actions already make it obvious. That's the beauty of letting success speak for itself. It does the talking and it never lies. A lot of people waste time trying to convince others of their greatness before they've done the work. They talk about their goals, their grind, their hustle, but talk is cheap. It's easy to say you're going to succeed. It's easy to create a performance that looks like progress. What's hard is putting in the work every single day without asking for recognition. What's hard is staying focused when nobody's clapping. The ones who understand this don't care about announcing every step. They're too busy taking the next one. They know that real growth takes time. It takes patience. It takes silence. Because When you're really in the zone, you're not thinking about validation. You're thinking about improvement. You're thinking about the next level. You're thinking about staying consistent long enough that you become undeniable. The world will eventually notice what you've built. It may take time, but results can't be hidden. They always find their way to the surface. People may not understand your journey at first. They may even doubt you, question you, or overlook you. But if you stay locked in and keep building, success will arrive and speak for you in ways you never could. It will show up in the way you solve problems. It will show up in the way you influence others. It will show up in the opportunities that find you, not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person who attracts them. There's a quiet power in letting your results do the talking. You begin to value progress over attention. You start to measure your worth not by how many people are watching, but by how many lives you're improving, starting with your own. That mindset creates freedom. You're no longer performing, you're just becoming. You're just executing. And over time, that execution stacks up into a legacy, one that doesn't require explanation because the evidence is everywhere. It's in the lifestyle, the discipline, the peace you carry, and the respect you command without ever asking for. That's what happens when you let success speak. Talking about your goals is easy, but execution requires focus and solitude. Anyone can say they're going to be successful. Anyone can stand in front of a crowd or post online about the dreams they want to chase, but the difference between a dreamer and a doer is found in the quiet space where action happens. That space isn't filled with applause, attention, or noise. It's filled with sacrifice, repetition, and work that nobody sees. The more you talk about your plans, the more you waste the energy that can be used to actually bring them to life. Execution doesn't need an audience. It needs discipline, time, and a commitment to showing up, especially on the days when motivation is nowhere to be found. Focus is the fuel for execution. It's what allows you to tune out distractions and zero in on what matters most. But focus requires solitude. You can't concentrate when you're surrounded by noise. Noise from people's opinions, noise from unnecessary conversations, noise from your own need to be seen or validated. When you step away from all that, when you give yourself permission to go silent and grind, that's when your actions begin to align with your purpose. You stop thinking about how you look and start focusing on what you're building. You begin to measure your days not by how much you talked about doing something, but by what you actually accomplished. And that mindset begins to separate you from the crowd. When you constantly share your goals, two things can happen. First, people will project their doubts onto you, even if they don't mean to. Their fears, their failures, and their limited thinking can seep into your belief system. Second, your brain starts to get a false sense of achievement just by talking. You feel like you've made progress just because you've announced your plans, but nothing real has happened yet. You haven't made the calls, put in the hours, or taken the hits that come with execution. And so you get stuck in a loop of saying instead of doing. The people who really win in life are the ones who stop announcing and start building. They don't feel the need to prove anything. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're locked in, working when others are talking, moving when others are stalling. Execution is quiet. It's not exciting most of the time. It's doing the same things over and over, improving little by little. It's facing failure, making adjustments, and going again. It's choosing to be uncomfortable now so you can be proud later. It's learning to be okay with not being seen because you know you're creating something that eventually no one will be able to ignore. That's the difference between noise and result. The world doesn't need more talkers. It needs more finishers. People who say less but do more. People who are more committed to the outcome than the announcement. Because when you commit to execution, with focus and solitude, the results always arrive. and they speak far louder than words ever could. Growth comes when no one is watching. Early mornings, late nights, consistency. The most important development in your life won't happen when the cameras are on or when the crowd is cheering. It will happen in those moments when you're alone, when it's dark outside, when the world is asleep and you're still pushing forward. Real growth isn't glamorous. It doesn't post selfies or ask for recognition. It happens in the shadows, in the quiet hours, in the repetition of tasks that seem small but build something massive over time. The early mornings when you choose discipline over sleep, the late nights when you review your progress instead of wasting time, those are the decisions that stack up into transformation. And nobody needs to see it. You need to feel it. Because growth is personal. It's internal. It starts in the mind, shows up in your habits, and eventually takes over your life in the form of results that can't be denied. The people who evolve the most are the ones who don't wait for motivation to strike. They create momentum through consistency. They do the work regardless of how they feel. They show up for themselves even when the payoff isn't immediate. And in those quiet moments, when there's no spotlight, no praise, no acknowledgement, they become stronger, sharper, more disciplined. Growth loves isolation. Not because isolation is easy, but because it removes the distractions that usually pull you away from your goals. When no one's watching, you start to move with honesty. You no longer perform for approval, you perform for progress. That's where real breakthroughs happen. Not in the moment you share something online, but in the moment you decide to keep going when quitting would be easier. Success has always been built in silence. The athlete training before dawn, the writer editing a draft at midnight, the entrepreneur working in the background while everyone else is celebrating. These are the people who understand that consistency without attention is the key. The early mornings are hard. The late nights test your commitment. But when you make those moments a habit, you begin to separate yourself from the average, because most people won't do what's uncomfortable consistently. They'll start strong and fade. They'll work when it's fun, not when it's lonely. But the few who keep showing up, no matter the hour, no matter the struggle, those are the ones who win. Every time you show up in the dark, you're planting seeds. You might not see the results right away, but growth is happening slowly, silently, powerfully. Your character is being built. Your mindset is being sharpened. Your future is being shaped. The world won't notice at first, but one day they will. They'll wonder how you did it, where it came from, why you seem so far ahead. And they won't realize that it all came from the hours they never saw. The moments you gave everything when you had every reason to give up. That's what growth looks like. Quiet, persistent, relentless. True confidence is working in silence while knowing you're building something unstoppable. Confidence isn't about talking louder than everyone else or making sure people notice you. It's about knowing deep down that your work, your dedication, and your focus are guiding you towards something great, even if no one else sees it yet. When you have real confidence, you don't need to announce every move. You don't need constant applause. You don't need permission to chase greatness. You just put your head down and move because you understand exactly what you're doing and why it matters. You trust the process, even when the results are still invisible. You don't worry about timelines, and you don't panic when others seem ahead, because you know what you're building can't be rushed or compared. Working in silence requires strength. It takes a level of self-belief that doesn't need daily validation to survive. You wake up and go to work not because someone is watching, but because you made a promise to yourself. And that promise matters more than approval. You don't seek shortcuts or gimmicks. You're focused on building something real, something solid. And every day, while others are performing or posting for attention, you're stacking brick after brick, strengthening your foundation. That's where true confidence lives, not in the noise, but in the steady, silent work of someone who knows what they're capable of. There's power in not needing to explain yourself. When you're working towards something great, you will be misunderstood. People might think you're quiet because you're uncertain. They might think you're distant because you're distracted. But what they don't realize is that your silence is discipline. Your distance is focus. You're not lost, you're locked in. You're doing the kind of work that can't be shared in a highlight reel. And while others chase quick wins, you're playing the long game. That kind of mindset can't be shaken. It's not fragile. It's not tied to anyone else's opinion. It's yours. And it's earned through the hours, the effort, and the consistency nobody else is willing to put in. Confidence built in silence can't be fake. You can't pretend to be something you're not when the results eventually speak. That's why it's so important to stay humble during the process. Keep learning, keep adjusting, keep refining your craft. Don't worry about recognition. That will come. What matters now is that you trust your path. Trust that what you're building will one day open doors no one else saw coming. And when it does, you won't have to say a word. Your confidence will already be written in your results, in your resilience, and in the way you carry yourself through every challenge. People will wonder how you became so grounded, so certain, so unstoppable. And they'll never realize it was the silent seasons, the quiet hours, the lonely work, the invisible progress that gave you the confidence to walk into any room knowing exactly who you are and what you've built.